Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Today, we are going to be going over my quarterback rankings, how they currently stack up in tiers, and then also going to be ranking them within tiers for the 2026-27 upcoming season here. So we are going to be going through really most of the relevant quarterbacks that I expect to potentially get playing time this year, kind of ranking them. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it here. Just want to go over my tiers real quick. We have elite franchise quarterbacks, true do-it-all, guys that you would expect to win a Super Bowl with. They're at the absolute top tier of, the game right now. We also have great quarterbacks you can win because of. These guys aren't nearly as consistent. They may not have the amount of sustained success as some of the guys in the elite franchise QB tier, but you can win because of them. We have good QBs that you can win with. These are guys that you may need a little bit more of a better infrastructure around them, but you can win a Super Bowl. You can win playoff games and have deep team success because of, the quarterback and the surrounding cast around him. These are more guys you win with rather than because of, but you can win it all with these guys at the helm. Next up, we have inconsistent quarterbacks that, they're good some weeks, they're rough some weeks. We're still kind of trying to figure out where some of these guys land. Maybe they're towards the back end of their careers. That's kind of the middle tier guys that you feel all right about, but you're not super convinced that you could win a Super Bowl with them at the helm necessarily. We have young QBs with upside. That's pretty self-explanatory. We have bridge replacement level type of players, guys who are on the downswing of their careers. They may be one of the 32 best right now, but these teams are actively looking to replace them. And then we have the it doesn't look good tier. Again, pretty self-explanatory. So let's just go ahead and dive right into it here, starting with Jordan Love. I think Love is definitely a great QB you can win because of. I think he's in that tier 2 right now. He's a guy who really has gotten better over time. He's dealt with some injuries. That's been a problem for him. He is an aggressive decision maker at times, but he doesn't put the ball in harm's way all that often. His turnover worthy play percentage is pretty low. Sometimes he just has some really, really ugly turnovers, but he's a very aggressive decision maker. He has an arm. He is more mobile than I think he gets credit for. Really, I think Jordan Love has a lot of the traits to be a fantastic player. I think he's really kind of solidified himself as a top 10 quarterback in the NFL and a guy that I certainly think the Packers can win a Super Bowl with, and I think there's a lot to like in Jordan Love's game. Next up, we have CJ Stroud, and I think Stroud would have been in this tier, a year and a half ago. But man, he has really, really struggled the past couple of seasons, particularly in the playoffs. And I think he is really inconsistent right now. I'm going to put him in this tier where, do I think the Texans could win the Super Bowl, even with him as the quarterback? I think it's possible. But based on how he's played in the playoffs the past couple of seasons, he has been really bad. And it's not just the playoffs. It's down the stretch. It's, he's just not been the guy that he was in, his rookie season. And he's just kind of slowly gotten more inconsistent and become a worse decision maker and not taking care of the football very well. And so Stroud is just very much one of the biggest wild cards, I think, at the quarterback position across the league. He's a very talented player, but he has just not put things together recently. And so I'm going to put him in that tier for now. For me, Shedeur Sanders is just a nothing burger. I think he has a weak arm. I don't think he takes particular good care of the football. I think he puts it in harm's way too often. To me, I do not see him as a guy that can be a long-term starter. He may start games for the Browns this year. I would fully expect that he will. I don't think it's looked good in the NFL. I don't think that, because of where he was drafted, that he's going to get a super long leash. I think the Browns will be actively looking to replace all the quarterbacks in their room, and Shedeur's no exception to that. Next up, we have Fernando Mendoza. Obviously, hasn't played a snap so far in the NFL, so hard to really rank him. We'll put him in the young QBs with upside tier right now. He could go any which way, but I do think that he'll have a pretty good career, good arm. He's an aggressive decision maker. I want to see how he does under pressure because I think he wasn't really put under pressure a lot at Indiana, but there is a lot to like in his profile. I think he was well worth the number 1 overall selection and certainly a guy I am excited to watch. I do think he will have a pretty good career for Vegas there. Next up, Drake Maye, and Drake Maye is a really interesting one. I am going to put him in this great QBs you can win because of tier. For me, the elite franchise QB tier is reserved for guys who have had a ton of sustained success, playoff success, maybe won awards, been really, dominant at the position for multiple years. Drake Maye has looked really good in the 2 years he's been in the league. He was an MVP, candidate down the stretch last season. I will say in the playoffs, he was really, really rough, and I think for me, he is absolutely has the talent to get into that elite franchise QB tier. I absolutely loved Drake Maye as a prospect. I think New England's just surrounded him with more talent this offseason with A.J. Brown and Romeo Doubs, improved the offensive line a bit. I absolutely think Drake Maye can continue to climb and get into that elite franchise QB tier, but for me right now, I just want to see more continued sustained success. Last year was really the first time we saw him really play at that kind of level, and down the stretch in the playoffs it was a lot rougher, so just want to see more consistency throughout an entire season from him. But he was really awesome, and certainly don't want to discredit how good Drake Maye was last season. Next up we have Cam Ward, and going to throw him in this young QB with upside tier. I think there were some good moments with Tennessee last year, but a lot of it was just really, really hard to evaluate. The coaching staff, fired really early in the season. He didn't have a ton of playmakers. The Titans were just an awful team last year, and so it was really hard to evaluate kind of what Cam Ward was and how good he was in his rookie season. I think this is a big year. You bring in Brian Daboll to be the offensive coordinator. You draft Carnell Tate. You sign Wan'Dale Robinson. You invest a little bit in the offensive line. I do think Cam Ward needs to show a pretty nice step this season because it was a lot of rough moments. I don't think that was fully on him in his rookie season, but he certainly has upside as a former number 1 overall pick to really kind of start climbing these tiers if things go well for him. Next up, we have Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos, and I think Nix is a really interesting conversation because his numbers, his stats are really good. I think that he has probably succeeded as far as a draft selection and where they take him, and some people were really negative on Bo Nix. I didn't love Bo Nix going where he did in the draft, but I think the infrastructure that he was drafted into with Sean Payton and that defense in Denver, you add Jalen Waddle this offseason as well. I think Bo Nix is going to continue to put up really good stats. Do I think he's a true elevator of an offense? Maybe. His rushing, I think, is underrated. He's accurate. He makes pretty good decisions. I still think there's moments where he has lapses and makes bad plays and decision making. He'll take a bad sack. I want to see him improve his pocket presence a bit. To me, right now, Bo Nix is a good QB you can win with. I absolutely think the Broncos can win a Super Bowl with Bo Nix at the helm. I'm not sure that he is the main driver as to why I think the Broncos can win a Super Bowl, so I'm going to put him in that tier for now. I think Broncos fans will think it's too low, but overall, I do think most people would agree that Bo Nix is a very solid quarterback, a guy you can win with, has some really nice traits, accuracy, mobility, play off script. But I still think there's a good bit that you want to see cleaned up in order for him to really start pushing up into one of those, truly dominant franchise-type quarterbacks. Next up, we have Patrick Mahomes. The past couple seasons have definitely been a downtick from what we've come to expect from Mahomes, but he is still an elite franchise quarterback. The playoff success is undeniable. Coming off an injury, we'll kind of see if he is fully back to the Patrick Mahomes that, dominated the league. But I think right now, he probably has lost his crown as the number 1 quarterback in the league because the past couple seasons, they've really struggled to find explosive plays. They haven't been able to get the running game going. Mahomes is kind of forced to take what he, is what's available to him. And he doesn't turn the ball over much, but I think a lot of the playmaking and the dominance that we saw from Mahomes kind of earlier on in his career has tapered off just a little bit. Don't want to make it sound negative, though. He's still, absolutely in the conversation for the best quarterback in the NFL. He is absolutely up there. So he is still very much an elite franchise quarterback. That's really not up for debate to me. Next up, we have Kirk Cousins. I mean, he may start the season for the Raiders, and I don't even necessarily think that's a bad thing, but at this point in his career, he's a bridge quarterback, a replacement level type player. Obviously, the plan is for him to pass the torch to Fernando Mendoza at some point this season. So I think that one is pretty obvious. I think he did have a pretty nice bounce back season after dealing with a bunch of injuries, having to come in last year with all the injuries to Penix. So I actually think he did have a nice late career kind of bounce back after it kind of seemed like his career was over. But, I could see him kind of bouncing around the league a little bit, being that bridge quarterback, one of the highest end backup quarterbacks, but I don't think he's much more than that right now. Next up, we have Justin Herbert, and I'm going to put him at the very top of this great QBs can win because of tier. And, Herbert's a very frustrating player because he has all the physical traits. I think he's been in this like 6 to 8 range of quarterbacks for a very long time, and he just can't seem to get over the hump. All the physical traits are there. They have a great supporting cast around him for the most part. It's just, they have really struggled in the playoffs. That's obviously a team success metric rather than a fully Justin Herbert metric. But I think he lacks a little bit of the pocket presence and the it factor and, just certain moments when things get really hard. I think the Chargers have really struggled, and Herbert is a piece of that. I do think he is a great quarterback, fantastic arm, really good accuracy, underrated mobility, and playmaking off script. There's a ton to like in Justin Herbert's game, but he's just kind of missing a little bit of that it factor to get himself into that elite franchise QB tier, whether it's playoff success, whether it's decision making, in big moments, whatever it is. Like, I just think there's something missing with Justin Herbert to really push him into that tier, even though it feels like he should be in that tier based on his talent, his coaching, all the things around him, the team success in the regular season. Like, he should be higher, but for whatever reason, they just have not been able to kind of get him over the hump there. So going to put him in the great QBs can win because of tier. Next up, we have Caleb Williams, really interesting one, really low completion percentage. I think his accuracy really kind of was not super consistent last season in his first year under Ben Johnson, but the playmaking, the big plays, the clutch factor was so ridiculous last season that I think as the number 1 overall pick a couple years ago, like Caleb Williams is really truly kind of getting into his rhythm and finding his path here in the NFL. And I think Ben Johnson, maybe the best play caller in the entire NFL. So I have ultimate confidence that Caleb Williams is going to be a really good quarterback. There were moments last season that I think he was not super consistent, but he really turned it on when it mattered. For me, I'm going to put him in the great QBs you can win because of tier. I think there's every possibility that he could climb over the next few seasons into this elite franchise QB tier. The talent is absolutely there. It's really about just kind of putting everything together, continuing to smooth out the mechanics and the accuracy, and continuing to make good decisions, which he did a good job of last year. I think he can even be more aggressive at times. So Williams is a really interesting player. I think he is very much on the ascension and a guy that is going to be a really good quarterback for a long time. Next up, we have Kyler Murray, and this is certainly an interesting conversation. He's been named the starter for the Vikings. He kind of just got cast out in Arizona, and, I don't think Kyler Murray is like a washed quarterback by any means. I think within a Kevin O'Connell system, there's a good chance that he has one of his best, seasons of his career and bounces back in a really good way. But so far, kind of what we've seen over the past couple seasons, I think he's in the inconsistent tier. Do I think the Vikings could win a Super Bowl with him? If everything goes right, maybe. It's kind of like CJ Stroud, though. Like, he has just had too many moments where he's been inconsistent, where, he's struggled to attack the middle of the field. I think that's a thing that is interesting with Kevin O'Connell's system, is a lot of it is, attacking the middle of the field, hitting hole shots between the zones over the middle. And I'm very curious to see kind of how that marriage between him and O'Connell's system works. But I think there's a chance it works out really well. I also think there's a chance that he kind of flames out like he kind of sort of did in Arizona. So it's very much a make or break year for Kyler Murray. And then JJ McCarthy, it just doesn't look good right now. Obviously, it's a very small sample size from what he produced last season. He was injured his entire rookie year, really was injured going into the season last year, played some, was decent at times. It was really, really rough at times. And so we just don't really know. Ends up losing the battle to, Kyler Murray in camp. And that was always going to happen when you sign Kyler Murray. But do I think JJ McCarthy could eventually become something? Maybe. But for right now, going into your third season, really no play time, when that was, I think, the biggest thing with McCarthy. He just hasn't played a ton. Like, I just don't love the trajectory he's on, so I'm going to put him in that tier for now. Next up, we have Jared Goff, who's just kind of one of the models of consistency. I think at this point in his career, he's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the NFL. If you tell him where to throw it, he'll absolutely get it there. I think he doesn't create a ton out of structure and off script, but I think Jared Goff is just a rock solid quarterback you absolutely can win with, and even because of at times. I think, the infrastructure in Detroit helps him a lot, but I also think that he is often kind of a catalyst for a lot of their offensive success, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Right now, I mean, he has had multiple seasons of sustained success in Detroit, and I think he absolutely deserves to be in that tier, even if he's maybe not the playmaker and the creator that some of these guys are. I just think the model of consistency that he's shown and the team success they've had since he's been there, I think, yeah, he deserves to be in that tier for now. Next up, we have Jaden Daniels, another big question mark with kind of all the injuries. Was so good in his rookie season, taking the Commanders to the NFC Championship game. Commanders kind of went all in on a lot of their moves, and it just didn't work out. Daniels was injured a lot, but I still think Daniels took a step back from what he was his rookie season on the field, but he's still a really good player. He can make tons of throws all over the field. His ability in third down clutch situations is really impressive. I think he has nice accuracy. His creativity off script, his ability to run and mobility and scrambling is all a huge asset for him. I think he needs to continue to show more sustained success in the NFL level to kind of push him up this list a little bit, but I think for Daniels, he's right there with kind of Caleb Williams and Drake Maye in this tier of guys who have really shown great flashes in the NFL, but I just want to see more sustained success. I want to see them, be more consistent. I want to see him stay healthy, and then he can continue to push up these rankings if he's able to do all of that. Next up, we have Geno Smith. I think, pretty clearly a bridge level player right now, replacement level player. Things just went off the rails in Vegas the last few seasons. Things were just really, really hideous there after a, really fun story in Seattle. But I think at this point in his career, he's not getting any younger. At times, he is just a terrible decision maker. I think the wheels have fallen off a little bit with Geno Smith. He's a replacement level player. I think he actually can be all right for the Jets this year, but it's not going to, stop them from taking a quarterback high in the draft where presumably, that's kind of their long-term vision. Dak Prescott is up next, and I think Dak Prescott is probably one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the NFL. I think it's because he plays for the Cowboys and because the Cowboys have not had a lot of sustained playoff success that Prescott gets underrated at times, but I absolutely think you can win because of Dak Prescott, and I'm going to put him even up here in this tier, high end of great QBs you can win because of. I think besides maybe Joe Burrow and, some of these guys in the very top of the food chain here, I think Dak Prescott may be one of the best processors in the NFL. Recognizing rotating safeties, being accurate, knowing where to go with the football. He's just incredibly cerebral. He is just really, really good at kind of dissecting the defense. Having George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb really helps, but I think when he stays healthy, Dak Prescott is the catalyst behind the entire passing offense for this team. He's accurate, great decision maker. It's all about just putting things together in the playoffs, which he struggled to do. But I think Prescott is incredibly underrated in that regard. Next up, we have Jalen Hurts, and I think Hurts is really kind of the definition of a good QB you can win with, but maybe isn't necessarily the catalyst behind it. Obviously, they've won multiple Super Bowls with Jalen Hurts, so that's, he can help be the quarterback for a team that wins a Super Bowl. That's not a question. He's proven that already. I am very curious to see how he does without A.J. Brown this year. I think there are times that Jalen Hurts' inability to attack the middle of the field, to really go through progressions, be really accurate inside the numbers, is a question mark for him. He's a good runner of the football. He's a guy who throws a beautiful touch deep ball and allows his guys to go make plays. But I think there's just too many times that he is not really able to attack the full width of the field, really able to kind of attack the weaknesses in the defense on a consistent level. And so I just think Hurts is a very solid quarterback. He provides you a really, really nice floor, but I don't think he has the upside of a lot of these guys to be a true MVP caliber guy, the true catalyst and reason that you're winning playoff games. I think it's mostly just the great infrastructure that Howie Roseman and the Eagles have right now. Great offensive line. They've had really good weapons, very solid defenses. I think those are the main reasons the Eagles have been multi-time Super Bowl champions recently under Jalen Hurts. More so than Jalen Hurts. Next up, we have Jackson Dart. I think he's very much in this tier of just young QBs with upside. I think Dart is an interesting player. He showed well in his rookie season, and I'm very interested to see what he can do with some better weapons around him and everything. But he needs to stay healthy. He needs to be a little bit more conscious of his decision making, not put the ball in harm's way too often. But his running ability, his playmaking, I think his accuracy and mechanics looks decent as well. Like, there's a lot to like with Jackson Dart. It's just very, very small sample size right now. Very much has a lot of upside to be a solid quarterback this year. Michael Penix, it just doesn't look good for him, man. Like, Michael Penix is a guy who was highly drafted by the Falcons. He's just been super inconsistent. He's been injury prone, which was a major question mark for him coming into the league. I am very concerned about the trajectory he's on right now. Can't battle with Tua. Like, things just aren't really working super well right now. And so, we'll see if he can stay healthy, put some games together. Maybe, we can push back up into that young QBs with upside tier. But right now, it just doesn't look overly good for him. Tua very much in that bridge replacement level type tier. I think, his health has been a major issue with him. Decision making is a major issue as well. Kind of outside of that Mike McDaniel timing offense where he was just like, I am dropping back, hitting the back of my drop and just blindly throwing it, trusting my guys to be there. He does that well, but for every, couple times that you see that, he'll just throw it straight to a linebacker because he really just does not process the defense effectively at all. He's a turnover machine waiting to happen. The injuries are a big time question mark as well. So Tua not a long-term option for the Falcons, I think, here. Then we have Tyler Shuck, and I do really actually believe in Tyler Shuck based on what he showed. I think he's a polished player. He has nice physical traits. He's accurate, got a nice arm. I think he's got decent mobility and, can continue to clean up the pocket presence a little bit, take less sacks, but I don't think there's really anything that Tyler Shuck showed that really gave you a major cause for concern. I think you really were largely positive on a lot of his rookie season. I really do think he is a nice player that maybe isn't going to climb all the way up into this elite franchise QB tier, but I do think the Saints, if they build a nice roster around him, I think he can absolutely have success and be their long-term starting quarterback for a while. So definitely a guy I'm kind of excited to see there. Next up, we have Bryce Young, and Young, I think, is a guy who's just kind of in that inconsistent tier right now. I think there's moments where he's really flashed. He's had some nice comebacks in the fourth quarter. I think he's relatively accurate. His playmaking comes and goes a little bit. His decision-making is a little inconsistent as well. He's just, for whatever reason, not really able to consistently string multiple good performances together. He'll come out and he'll throw 4 touchdowns against a good defense and look really great. And then the next week, he'll look terrible and he'll make poor decisions. He won't have great pocket presence. He won't attack the full width of the field. It's about just stringing together multiple games, being able to have a nice, consistent season for Bryce Young. We just haven't seen that yet. So, I still think Bryce Young is a solid quarterback, but I think he's very much in this inconsistent tier right now based on kind of what he's shown recently. Next up, we have Baker Mayfield, and Mayfield through the first couple weeks of the season was looking like a potential MVP candidate. He got banged up a lot, and things just completely fell off for him. He started making bad decisions. I think his arm strength was hindered a bit by some of the injuries. He had, shoulder injury, arm injury. Like, there were a lot of things going on with Mayfield, lots of nicks throughout the season, but things really fell off in a rough way, and now it kind of seems like the Buccaneers are not committing to him long term. So I think Mayfield's an interesting player. He's a gamer. He's a guy who creates a little bit off script. He, can be accurate, make plays all over the field, but he also can be way too aggressive with his decision making. He can put the ball in harm's way. He's just a very up and down quarterback, and I think you can win with him, but I think you have to have quite a bit go right and have a really nice supporting cast kind of around him as well. So I think he fits nicely into that tier, and I'm going to put Sam Darnold in this tier as well, but at the top of it, Darnold is obviously, you can win a Super Bowl with Darnold. They just did last year. I think that defense and Mike McDonald, the great coaching and the scheme around it, Clint Kubiak's play action offense, that running game with Kenneth Walker and everything, I think those were the main catalysts behind it, and having, top 5 receiver in the league in Jackson Smith and Jigba certainly helps as well. I think Darnold has really had a nice, mid-career resurgence. I think he's going to be the franchise quarterback for the Seahawks for a long time. You clearly can win with him. There's still moments that Sam Darnold, doesn't play as consistently as you would like to. He can make bad decisions. Pocket presence is still, I think, an area he can continue to clean up. But Sam Darnold, very good quarterback. You obviously can win with him. I'm just not sure he is the main catalyst behind why the Seahawks won last year. And Brock Purdy, I think he's kind of in that tier as well. Purdy is a guy who, when he's playing really well, he absolutely can be, a driving force behind the success of the 49ers. But I also think that when things around him are struggling, I think he does fall off a little bit. He is helped out a good bit by the scheme and Kyle Shanahan's offense, but he operates it super effectively. I think when you have, the receivers that they've had where they've had success, the defense, like that's usually why the 49ers are really good. That along with the scheme and Brock Purdy operating the scheme really effectively, you can win a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. I really have no doubts about that. I'm just not sure he's the main driver behind it, but he is a really good quarterback. He has had a little bit more, rough decisions, I think, over the past couple of years than earlier on in his career, where I thought he took care of the football really effectively. But that's still a very good quarterback for Brock Purdy, and, he operates well, accurate. He's a very good player. Then we have Malik Willis. He's, I guess, a young quarterback with upside. He has been kind of around the league a little bit, and I think he is a guy who has potential. That's why Miami paid him. He looked really good in his starts with Green Bay last year, kind of replacing Jordan Love when he was injured. I don't think Miami has a very good supporting cast this year to really help him out. I would be honestly a little surprised if he ends up being like the guy there. I think they'll probably look to draft someone long term, but Willis is a guy with upside. He's still a young player. He was, a guy with tons of traits coming out. He's had time to kind of sit and develop within a couple of systems and teams. And so I think there is a non-zero chance that Malik Willis could be really solid. But, he's a young guy with a lot of, upside, but doesn't have a ton of experience. So be very interested to kind of see what he does in Miami this year. Next up, we have Jacoby Brissett. I think he's kind of the face of the bridge replacement level type player right now. He actually had really nice stats last year, but that was because they were like throwing the ball 50 times a game with him because, they were down pretty much all the time. I liked having him on my fantasy team because, he was a nice surprise in a super flex league, but I don't really think he's the long-term option. They were in a contract dispute with Jacoby Brissett earlier this year, and, it looks like that got sorted out. He's going to be their starter for now. Carson Beck, the other guy here. For me, I don't know that I really see Carson Beck as a young QB with a ton of upside. I thought, his decision-making, especially when pressure comes, it was a major problem at Georgia and, at times at Miami as well. For me, I don't really know where to rank him. He's a young quarterback with maybe a little bit of upside, but, I don't see him as the long-term option for the Cardinals there. I think he can maybe be a nice long-term backup. Then we have Matthew Stafford. And Stafford's kind of been a guy for me that has always kind of hovered right around this very high end of great QBs that you can win because of. They've won, Super Bowl, but last year, MVP caliber season. As long as Matthew Stafford stays healthy, I think he absolutely deserves to be pushed into this elite franchise QB tier. For me, it was always kind of a 4-horse race, but I think Stafford does deserve to be pushed into that tier now. He's a guy with Super Bowl expectations with the Rams this year and, coming off an MVP season. I think this is going to be a really interesting year to see what Stafford does. He's not getting any younger. This may be the last ride for him. We'll see. But, I think it is very, very fun to see what Matthew Stafford has done late in his career with the Rams. So I think he deserves to be pushed there. Really no physical limitations outside of injuries with Stafford. He's not super mobile and a huge creator at this point in his career, but he really has kind of fully pushed himself into that conversation. Joe Burrow up next, and we're going to put him in the elite franchise QB tier as well. Really the only question with Joe Burrow is injuries. That is obviously a talking point now because of the amount of time that he has missed, but I think he's the most accurate quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the best decision maker in the NFL. He had a ridiculously low turnover-worthy play percentage in the games that he did play last year. Yes, he has helped out by having Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, but he also is a huge part of why those guys are so successful. He's so accurate. The rapport he has with those guys is really impressive. I think his playmaking, his pocket presence is up there with the absolute best. People, just because he's not running quarterback, don't associate him with being this crazy playmaker. If you go back and watch his off-script highlights, they're outrageously good. So he just has to stay healthy. That's really the only question with him. He has to stay healthy. Next up, Lamar Jackson, obviously in the elite franchise QB tier. I do actually have him above Mahomes and Burrow right now just because I just think that, his running ability, his passing has gotten really good at this point in his career. I think, with Burrow, it's the injuries. With Mahomes, it's the fact that he's coming off an injury. He's had like 3 down seasons in a row at this point compared to, where some of these other guys are. Like Lamar, I think just does deserve to be kind of in that conversation for the best quarterback in the NFL right now. I think he's just really, really consistently an explosive playmaker, a guy who just, he needs to find success in the playoffs. That's the biggest thing kind of holding him back from really being like the guy at the quarterback position. But, I think he's firmly in that conversation for the best quarterback. Deshaun Watson, don't really want to spend any time on him. He is at best a replacement level player. He is going to get replaced. He's terrible, bad decision maker at this point. He's lost most of his mobility that made him special. His accuracy, his arm just don't look the same as when he was with the Texans. He looks terrible at this point, and I think him, Shador, whoever it is in the Browns quarterback room are going to be replaced next year. So, yeah, bridge season for sure with them there. Then we have Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is kind of just like this inconsistent guy who still has moments where he's like, a really nice quarterback. He obviously understands the game at a higher level than almost anyone right now. But, I do think his mobility is really gone at this point. He can't move around the pocket and use his legs to create, which was such a big part of his game when he was with the Packers. I think his decision-making comes and goes a little bit. He gets a little over-aggressive at times and stuff with the Steelers and hasn't always had the best receivers around him. But I think at this point, you settle in around, the 20th best quarterback with Aaron Rodgers. That seems about right for him. Daniel Jones is also in this tier as well. Like, Daniel Jones, through the first, couple weeks of the season, looked like he was the guy. And he was maybe an MVP candidate. That might be pushing it a little bit. But, like, he was playing like a top 7 quarterback through the first couple weeks of the season. He gets injured and then eventually is out for the year. Everything kind of falls apart. Like, do you believe that's the real Daniel Jones? We've seen just the whole spectrum of Daniel Jones. That one year with the Giants where they went to the playoffs, won a playoff game with him. He was really fun. Pretty much every other year he's been really, really rough and a complete disappointment outside of the, 6 or 7 games that we saw last year. Like, he looked great in those, but coming back from injury, his mobility is a big part of his game. Is that what Daniel Jones is now? Who knows? So he is a big wild card as well as far as, the success of the Colts and where he's at this point in his career. Trevor Lawrence, a really interesting one as well. I think he's kind of in this tier of good QBs you can win with. I don't think Trevor has really kind of pushed himself into this you can win because of tier. I think his pocket presence is still an area that you want to see improve. His decision making, there's times where he just he's a great decision maker, takes care of the football really well. And there's other times where he's just ignoring guys that are right in the play, and he'll just throw it straight to a linebacker, right? I think Lawrence maybe has kind of stalled out a little bit. We've kept expecting further growth and further development that just hasn't really come with him. Do I think the Jags can win a Super Bowl with him? Yeah, I do. I think he's talented enough for that, but I think he kind of settles around, the 15th best quarterback in the NFL for me. A really good starting quarterback, a guy that, I think can be a big piece of why you win, but maybe you do need a stronger supporting cast and good coaching to kind of, really push for championship aspirations. And then we have Josh Allen last year, and I think for my money here, he is the best quarterback in the NFL. I think just his playmaking ability, his ability to run, make plays off script, but also I think his arm talent is the best in the NFL. He can hit a throw anywhere on the field. His rushing ability is, up there with Lamar Jackson for the best in the league. They kind of do different things there, but to me, Josh Allen, I think, is the best quarterback in the league, and I do think he needs to win playoff games, kind of like Lamar Jackson, to really kind of push himself as far as just his legacy. But if we're talking about just how they play, outside of the playoffs, I think Lamar and Josh Allen are the 2 best. I think when they're in the playoffs, the next 3 guys in this elite franchise QB tier, Mahomes has been fantastic in the playoffs. Burrow, when he's made the playoffs, they've made the AFC Championship game both times, but they've just struggled to get to the playoffs, whether that's because of him being injured or the defense being terrible. And Stafford is a great playoff performer as well. So, it's kind of interesting. The top 2 guys, I think, are the best regular season quarterbacks pretty clearly, unless Burrow is able to stay healthy and Stafford is playing like he was last year. but I think those other three guys have more playoff success. So just kind of an interesting dichotomy there. So that is my quarterback ranking tier list here for the 2026-27 season. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Who do you think is ranked too high or too low? If you like this kind of content, please hit that like button. While you're down there, hit the subscribe button as well. Both of those just free and easy ways to support the channel. We're going to have more NFL content coming to you. We'll have NFL draft content as well, so you won't want to miss it. Thank you for watching. I will catch you in the next one.